Hello everyone, this is Mike from Medical Models at med-mod.com. I want to do a video here showing registration. So this is taking two different scans, in this case two CT scans of a pelvis from a patient, and registering together so that they line up. I got these off of Embody 3D. These are under the name BASIN, so one is a pre-op and one is a post-op. And you can see them here. So right now when I load them in, if I show them here, you can see one of them up here, and then if I was to scroll to this one, you'd actually see it. It doesn't show up because I'm not zoomed out far enough. So the simplest thing to do is to center both volumes. For this case it's okay. Sometimes you don't want to lose this origin. So I'll take this one here and center it, and then I will do the same for the post-op. And now if I go over here to show that, you'll see that they are on top of each other. Now they don't line up with each other, obviously. That's the goal of this process. So the first thing before actually running registration is I'll go and do an initial alignment by eye. And for this case I will treat the pre-op as the static non-moving image, and then the post-op will be the one I'll try to move and align it better. So I like to actually go and change the way it's imaged. This will help visually to see how well it's aligned. I'll adjust the thresholding so that you can see them both. So the colored one is a post-op. You can even tell there's already some hardware in there. And the grayscale one is the pre-op. So if I go back to transformations, so I have this initial alignment. This will be my transformation matrix when I'm done. So you can do some initial alignment. So it looks like it needs to be moved a bit anterior. Oh, before I do that, I need to actually tell it what volume to work with. So now I have the transformation applying to the post-op image. So I can move it around to get it closer to alignment. I'm not going to get very exact, and this situation is a little different than other times I might use registration where the two images aren't actually the same volume, because this is the pre-op is a pretty major dislocation or subluxation of that hip with various parts, and so the volume does not match up. Whereas other situations you might get like a CT and MRI scan of a brain and from the same subject, and so then things will line up and match a lot better. But I can get things pretty close. You can also do rotation. And rotation is where it really helps to have the two images centered. Otherwise it'll be rotating around some other point and it will be difficult to do. So I'll call that a decent initial alignment. It's already much closer than when things were loaded up. And you can see it here in the 3D view. So now I will go over to do the actual registration. And this is general registration brains. There's other methods out there. So the fixed image, which I am going to have the moving image rotate and align to, is the pre-op, and I'm going to move the post-op to where it aligns. I'll leave this stuff the same here. The initialization transform, that's that alignment I did with transform. And down here is where you change some of your settings. So For this relatively simple registration, we're just going to line up using the 6 degrees of freedom, so 3 translations and 3 rotations, to get the 2 volumes to match up pretty well, better than I did here by hand. And so that's all set up, and I have to create an output volume. So I'm going to create a new one, which I will call registration post-op, because I want to make sure to leave the initial scan volume in place. So I hit that run. These other ones are for more complicated registrations, so we can do the 6 degrees of freedom and scale it. That's basically scaled in all directions, or we can have it scale on different amounts in different directions. And then these other ones get into warping and things, which I haven't done with 3DSlicer before, but I've done it with other software. And that's a way that you can actually register one patient to another, and that can be useful for other applications. So it doesn't take too long typically for this registration to complete, so long as everything's set up correctly. This does work on this scan, which has different voxel sizes. I think some of these other ones may require the same voxel sizes here, but this one's relatively close. Oh, there we go. So now if you look here, you can see, there we go. So this is the post-op. So I'm going to switch that back to the pre-op, and this will be the registered post-op. And you can see that it did a much better job than I had before. Now I'm also going to go and switch the way that it's viewed again, so that it'll be a little bit easier to distinguish. Okay, so now you can see for the, I believe that's the left hip with it, which is intact. The 2 images line up really well here. Of course, the right hip, which is dislocated and broken apart in the pre-op, isn't going to line up. So that is that. Another thing I'll do is I'll look at it in volume rendering. I find that's a very helpful way of looking at things. So if I look at the pre-op, I'll pull that up and I'll hide these planes. So I'll adjust the threshold here. And so this is your pre-op. You can see the hip bone, the ilium is cracked, all broken apart. I don't know what the pathology of this was. It looks like a pretty severe fall, and the femur pushed in through the socket. Definitely looks painful. Now, without, I'll try to find a view that helps to see the alignment. So now I will switch to the post-operation, and we'll see how this lines up. Yeah, still has the coloring applied. Okay, so now you can see this didn't really move, but you can see how much this changed to line up. I'll go back to the pre-op. So yeah, so it's a good way to line up 2 images. So an MRI of a head with a CT is helpful. You can line up the 2 volumes, and you could even add them together to attempt to have both the CT and MRI information, but it won't work out as easy as you might think. So that's what I have for registration. It's an initial look at that ability within Slicer. Thank you for your time.